Okay, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Lauren Cohen coming to you live from South Florida on Investing Across Borders, the podcast where we teach you how to invest, live, work, and play across borders. I am here today with my guest, Sid Mohasseb. Is that how you pronounce it, Sid?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, awesome. And Sid is an amazing entrepreneur who I met through a compilation book that we were both featured in called the Immigrant Hustle. And it was about 50 immigrant entrepreneurs that had built success stories through their adversity of being immigrants. Sid is just an amazing entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur from a very young age. He had hemophilia when he was 7, and he learned to turn that into something positive, always finding a silver lining. We connected a few months ago through the book, and we had some great synergies. And I wanted to invite him on the show to share his experience of how to help people invest across borders, create businesses across borders, create global businesses, and really have a global impact. Sid, please introduce yourself.
I think you did a nice job of raising expectations. As you mentioned, I am an immigrant. I came from Iran about 40 some odd years ago, and I came by myself to the United States.
Now, you were how old when you came to the United States?
16.
Under 18, right?
16.
Yeah. So you came to the United States at 16 years old from Iran, and you basically are, well, you are completely self-made.
Well, I guess that's true. But I think, the foundational stuff that happens in your early years would kind of put a dent on completely self-made, maybe 99% self-made. The foundational stuff helps, and I am forever grateful for my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I came here in 1976, and this was before the revolution in Iran. So it wasn't as a cause of a revolution. It was a self-decision, which had some interesting stories behind it. And went to school, went to college, and started working at my first job, real job, was $1.50 an hour, and I had a master's degree. So couldn't work, and then started working, and actually got my permanent residency and citizenship through work.
Wow.
I started my first business when I was in college.
Mm-hmm. What business
Uh,
was that?
it was something that may sound silly today. It was a facsimile business. Facsimile is a fax.
Yes, I
But
remember those faxes. Yes.
so in those days, it was a little. It had a little box thing to it, and you would put a regular phone in it. It would fit within, the headset of a phone would fit within it, and then the analog signals would be recognized, and you would get a connection, and it would take forever for a page to be transmitted. But it was a lot faster than the alternative,
Which was courier or delivery.
which was courier. And at that time, FedEx had just started. There was a company called Flying Tigers that had just started. There was a competition in DHL, and so the best thing was 3-4 days to get a document somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So a 4-day turnaround was pretty decent.
Yeah. And in like facsimiles, and then came dial-up internet. Remember
That's
that?
right.
Now we're so frustrated when the internet isn't moving super, super fast at the speed of light. And in those days, we had to wait like sometimes 20 minutes just to get online at all. And
we
sit
were
there
happy
and
to get
wait.
online. And we
Pardon
were
me?
happy to get online.
You were
And we
so
were happy
happy to get online, to have any signal at all. It was a completely different world. And,
Yeah.
in some ways, I mean, certainly through COVID, thank goodness for the internet, because otherwise we would all be stuck in our homes really not doing much business. And at least with the internet and Zoom and opportunities like that and interaction, it allows you to work virtually. which would not have been the case back in the
Yeah.
70s or even the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Because we just didn't have those opportunities available.
Correct. Correct. Now let me use that opportunity as an example that how it's important in terms of success to be able to stay relevant. To stay relevant means that expectations change, and that's a good thing, because we, either as business owners, as or as entrepreneurs, or as customers and consumers, we deserve more,
Yeah.
and we should get more, and we can get more. But that means that we have to go through this embracement of change, and we have to stay relevant. Doing the same thing over and over, as Einstein says, and expecting a different result doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So what
Isn't that the definition of insanity?
that is definition of insanity. It's exactly right.
I think
Uh,
all of us entrepreneurs have a little bit of insanity inside of us, though, right?
well, I have a theory which is, as you and I talked, I've already, I've also explored in my new book, the "You Are Not Them," which is we're all entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship is about exchange of something that we have with something better, knowing that there is a risk. And every immigrant is certainly proven to be an entrepreneur, because we're here. We want to be someplace else
Hmm.
in order to achieve a better life, a better standard of living, a better thing for our kids, a better. We are trying to get something better, and we're willing to take the risk of the unknown, of not having money, of not knowing where we are, of not knowing the language, of not having any connections, of nobody knowing us.
Oh, no,
Um,
connections is a key for sure.
yeah.
You
So
know,
we
it's
take the
interesting because I'm from Canada, and people always take it for granted, or often, that I'm not an immigrant because I'm from Canada, and they think, oh, it's no big deal and whatever, and it's easy, and yes, we speak the same language. You know, the main difference that I see when I'm working with immigrants, but since that's what I do every day, is that immigrants from a place like Canada versus a place like Iran or a place like Venezuela or something like that, the people from Canada, maybe the people that disagree with the way that the COVID has been handled or that Trudeau has handled things or whatever, they're not escaping political persecution. They're not refugees. They're not in asylum. They're not dealing with those things. And they probably, God willing, never will. So it was a choice for me to immigrate. Now it was a choice for you, but imagine what happened a few years later when that upheaval did happen in Iran, and then people wanted out, and people want to have freedom, and you don't have freedom in a lot of these countries that immigrants are coming into the US from. And that's something that does create a distinction. Like, my immigration path was obviously different than yours, not necessarily easier, just different. But
Yeah.
people just take it for granted that Canadians just snap their fingers and they get immigration status. And that is not the case. I would say 2/3 of the people on my call I just did about how to immigrate through real estate were from Canada, because they want to get another option. So
So, Lauren, a couple of things I think in what you said is worth unpacking. One is that we're all different, and we all come from different situations. But we all make a choice. We can make a choice even if we are in a in a country or in a place where it's not a nice place to be. We make a choice that we want a better thing.
a
So
better life.
I want to emphasize this idea of we make choices, and it is our choices that have consequences. It is our choices that gives us additional opportunities. It is our choices that allows us to pursue happiness.
Yes.
And that is at the core of entrepreneurship. That's at the core also of being an immigrant, because we may be in a situation, we may choose that, "Hey, I don't want to be away from my father. I don't want to be away from mother. It's too hard, too difficult." For some people, as you said, it's they have to go, be in boats and this and that. It's much more difficult. But we make a choice, and we continue to make a choice. And I think from an immigrant perspective, I think we have an advantage when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, because we have already stimulated the talent that it is within us, and we know that we can make a choice, and we can make something that we have into something better and take a risk.
Yeah, and also immigrants are more or less risk averse, more tolerant of risk because they've taken the risk already of moving from one country to another.
Yeah,
Some people don't even ever expand outside of the state or the province or the country that they're in.
yeah.
And coming from Canada, I've been all over the world. I've been fortunate enough to do that, as I'm sure you have now. But the reality is that not everybody has those opportunities, and not everybody also looks outside of themselves, which is what you did at such a young age, to have the foresight to know that you wanted to build a life where you could raise your children and have, opportunities. And you've certainly created those. Tell us a little bit about You Are Not Them. What is that? What is the content or the kind of mission of that book?
So I guess the title should give you a little clue. um, People call me the entrepreneur philosopher,
Hmm.
at the risk of sounding a little pompous, and uh, because I look at life and entrepreneurship not in a how-to mode. That
Okay.
is, yes, it's important for you to know how to market, how to sell, how to build a business, what's the difference between corporations and this. It's important to know accounting and all that sort of stuff. That's all important. But what is more important is the mindset that you approach things with.
100%.
So the "you are not them" idea is all entrepreneurs in the world are different. Warren Buffett is very different than Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is very different than Bill Gates. They're different than Rockefellers. They're different than entrepreneurs in any country that you name it. They are different because they have their own philosophy.
Hmm.
They have their own entrepreneurial philosophy, which is a combination of their beliefs and who they are and how they act, and their perspective and how they embrace entrepreneurship elements. Things like risk,
Yeah.
things like building an ecosystem, things like what I call dancing, not pivoting, not challenging, not wrestling, dancing with challenges of execution and doing things like having their own authentic entrepreneurship and leadership style. Now, all of those collectively would help us actuate our mindfulness. It's not about, being mindful is not about looking and, sitting and doing some Buddha like thinking about who we are and what we are, but it's actually realizing who we are and going from our origins, whatever that is, to find our originality, who we are authentically
Mm.
there, and then actuating or activating that mindfulness to get to results. Because at the end, what matters is the last mile, is crossing this thing. And then guess what? There's right another one, another race, another activity, another thing to do. And that is the pursuit of happiness. Whatever we have, we want something more
Mm-hmm.
because we deserve it. But that comes from how our wiring is done, how our philosophy is done. And so the first thing to admit is we all have the entrepreneurship gene or talent in us. They they need to go, they need to discover, they need to do better. They need to pursue happiness,
Yep.
which is an exchange of what we have with something else, knowing that there is some risk. The second is that we realize that we're not them. That is, there is nobody else who could be Steve Jobs. He is unique, but so are you. So
Right.
so am I.
And it's
So
okay
are
not
you.
to be them.
And but the thing is that a lot of how-to books say, here's how it's done. And what people try to do is try to do what somebody else has done,
Yes.
but we're not them. We
Right.
don't have the same experience. We don't have the same connection sets. We don't have the same IQ. We don't have the same
Right.
parents. We don't have the same amount of money. We weren't born at the same place.
Right.
We're just not them. So trying to be following how to of somebody else doesn't necessarily work. Now, there are mechanical things that would work, right? How do I present? How do I have how do I speak? How do I do a PowerPoint? How do I do a Excel spreadsheet? How do I do, accounting? Those things can be learned. And yes, they go from one place to another. Writing is writing, but not everybody that can write can necessarily write a novel or write beautifully or communicate well. And that is the style, the thing that each one of us kind of brings to the table. So
Yeah.
that's what You Are Not Them is all about. It's about exploring those things, and then through a lot of analogies, like when we deal with risk, I use the analogy of a pilot, because every pilot takes the risk every day.
Hmm.
The engine may not work, the weather may go wrong, some electronic little component may not work. But here's the thing: is the pilot taking more risk, or us as a passenger
Hmm.
in that plane? The risk is the same.
Yeah, I was just going to
We've
say, I
just
think both.
we've just delegated that risk
Right.
to somebody who we think is doing better.
Who we think is more competent than us to
Correct.
manage that
Correct.
risk.
Correct.
Right.
So in life and in entrepreneurship, we're dealing with risks. We're the pilot. Sometimes we delegate it to somebody else. Sometimes we're a passenger. Sometimes we are a fighter jet pilot, where it's not just that it's a commercial routine flight that we go back and forth. And that's kind of like being in a corporate structure. You have a
Hmm.
job, they have drawn these boxes and the limits for you. You play within those boxes. It's just like a commercial pilot. There is a form you fill up every day. The weather is good. The engine is this. The check, 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 check. Okay, let's get in and go. Sometimes you're an entrepreneur. And this applies to an immigrant as well. Sometimes you don't have the checklist.
Right.
And the odds are different than a commercial pilot. That is, people are shooting at you. There is a fight out there. You don't have enough money or enough fuel in the tank. So I use a lot of analogies to kind of explore the dimension of risk. The same thing I do around ecosystems. Nobody in business and in life, we're not islands, we exchange. For me to exchange, there has to be somebody else to exchange with.
Hmm.
I'll give you this, you give me this.
Right.
Right? So no business happens unless I think I'm making the product, I'm designing it, I'm making it, I'm selling it to myself, I market it to myself, I buy it myself, I pay for it myself.
There's no
There has to be
exchange.
somebody else
Right.
involved in this. It could be the customer, it's the employees, it's your partners, it's somebody who gives you some initial funding and investment. There is an ecosystem. So I call this the ocean that you create, and the characteristics is your oceanness. Because an ocean, imagine it's a provider. It provides to all the species within it. It connects the species. It's an energizer as it creates waves and movement. So how do we create our own ecosystem? Whether it's 5 people in a donut shop, or it's Microsoft with 17 million people
Right.
in it. But we need to have an ocean. And again, I mentioned there's the dancing with issues. I use dancing because timing is important. In dancing, timing is very important.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you follow a certain routine, and sometimes you have to improvise. It's the same thing in business. Timing is important, being relevant. Today, if I want to start a business doing facsimile services, do you think it's a good idea? It doesn't matter how good I am at it.
Right. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to buy it.
Nobody is going to buy it.
Nobody wants it. Nobody's going to buy it.
So timing is important.
Yeah.
It's important to be able to be flexible, to change, and to practice, and to gain knowledge about the thing, and know the music and understand the circumstances. All of that is about executing, is about doing things.
And then adapting also is a
And
big,
correct, correct.
which
Now,
I think any successful entrepreneur, especially over COVID, has had to adapt and relearn sometimes their model.
yeah,
People
and
that
and
weren't.
that's learned. The thing is that we get into this. This was I discussed this in my first book about addictions. We are addicted to sameness because it's comfortable.
I think everybody right now is addicted to sameness because they don't have a choice, but they're desperate to get out of that sameness, don't
So,
you?
so this might be the energy that I say the future of entrepreneurship is very bright. So
Hmm.
here's the thing: we've had a business, we do the same thing, and we don't like change because change is making us. But let me introduce an idea to you, Lauren. What if I tell you that every day of your life is exactly the same? The weather is exactly 72 degrees. It is sunny. You get up and your son or daughter is on the fifth grade. You take it to class, same road, same car. You eat the same McDonald's at lunch.
Oh my
The
God,
same thing.
that's
The
bad.
same thing. That means there's no change.
Right.
If there's no change, there's no progress. If there is no change, there's no choice. So looking at change as the enemy, I think, is the wrong thing.
Oh
It
yeah.
is the only friend we have because it provides us with choices. And
Yes.
choice is exactly a choice, is exactly what we made as an entrepreneur, as an immigrant,
Immigrant.
when
Yeah.
we chose a better thing, when we
Yeah.
took a risk. Without a choice, there
Yeah.
would be no progress.
I think a
And
lot
that's
of
at the core of
entrepreneurs,
entrepreneurship.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs, uh, well, now we're going to see a whole new stream of entrepreneurs that may not have chosen to be entrepreneurs. They were kind of more forced because they lost their jobs. But at the end of the day, it's going to open lots, and it already is opening lots and lots of doors to new innovations, new entrepreneurship, forced entrepreneurship. Um, uh, some people had a calling and now they may be able to follow that. And I think that that's going to also open doors for what you're teaching about we are not them and not following. It's not. I'm very very specific in my with my clients that it's not a plug and play. If you want to immigrate through real estate, if you want to invest in real estate, if you want to expand your business across borders, there's not a plug and play that you just fit into. It's custom built for you. And that's what you're talking about. Yes, there are systems that can be implemented, that can be followed, that can apply to every business. But at the end of the day, you have to bring your own unique approach to that so that you can build it that it works for you.
Correct. So here's what I say. Life is not it's not like going to IKEA, buying a bookcase with instructions of how to fit it together. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
We don't have any instructions. There is
Nope.
nothing, and we make it the way we want it. I use in the book, I use the analogy of we are the sculptor and the sculpture. We are both the art and the artist.
Hmm.
As we build ourselves, we chisel ourselves, we sculpt ourselves, and we're never done.
Yeah.
We are never done. There
And
is
if
no
you're done, then
perfection.
you may as well not even bother because if
Then
you're
we're
if
then we're
that
dead.
yeah, exactly. I was going to say that, but it's true because we're I think we're always growing. And it's kind of like the entrepreneurs that don't believe in having a coach or the coaches that don't have a coach or the coaches that don't mastermind.
Yeah.
We all need a team. We all need a
So
support.
let me tell you something else that I have learned over the years. I'm a believer in a coach or a mentor in some form or shape. But over the years, I have come up with this idea that I also talk about this in the book. It's the idea of I use a Indian word called up guru. Guru is the one that you trust and you follow. An up guru is the guru that is with me at this moment, which
Mm.
may be a different guru in 10 minutes.
Is that like an opportunity? Is that what OP stands for
No,
there?
it could be you, right? I'm talking to you. If I'm truly listening, I'm learning something from you.
Yeah.
Then you are my guru. Then you are my
Ah,
mentor. You taught me something. And
right.
then the next minute, and I say it could be your mother, it could be somebody on TV, it could be a bumper sticker. It's not the mentor that is important. It is the openness of you and I to be listening for something new. Because we take see the mentor again sees life in their own with their own set of glasses. They see life through their own experiences. Our objective in terms of a growth path is to see what they tell us, what we get from the world, and turn it and fit it into our philosophy, who we are and how it applies to us. Because what applies to you doesn't necessarily apply to me, but
No.
something that you say may trigger something in my mind
Yes.
that may be extremely valuable. So,
So much. So agreed. And
so
these
this idea
principles
of
are
listening is more important.
always, listening is the most important skill.
Yeah.
And also, the important thing I want to impart to our listeners is that these words of wisdom from Sid are applicable to anybody in any country. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's across borders, it's pervasive. And if you really want to be able to look beyond what you're doing today, just making an impact and doing something greater and perhaps expanding across borders, listen to these words and listen to your clients and listen to your gut and listen to what people need and how you can respond to it.
And stay
So
relevant, as you
always stay relevant.
stay
That's
relevant.
why I certainly, my signature program was not always how to immigrate through real estate, but that's the demand. That's where my focus led me, and so I responded. And that's what you need to do. And I think you may know this. I'm also a realtor, and I joined EXP, and EXP Realty has literally gone through the roof. It was $10 at the beginning of COVID when I didn't buy it. It was $148 yesterday. The stock has gone crazy because the company is relevant. They invest in tech, they invest in opportunity, they invest in Success Magazine. They stay relevant because they're not just in a box. And that's what's important, and that's why the story is so successful, and they're international. So it's been an interesting ride. And Sid, I think that you have shown, I mean, it's interesting. Last week, I interviewed my lovely, amazing client who's also originally from Iran, but immigrated to Canada. I don't know if you know of him, Iman Guy. If you don't, you should. You definitely would resonate with him. His story is amazing. He was literally 17 days from having no roof over his head, and he has built a hugely successful, impact-driven business with a heart-centered approach. And I think that just brings to life, it doesn't matter where you're from and where you come to, you can impact people on a very pervasive level. And I thank you for sharing your story. I thank you for being a part of my life, a new part of my life, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to work together on with some clients and some impact some people together. Sid, how can people reach you?
My first name at my last name, sid@mohasseb.com, is my email. So it's
That's
pretty
Sid
simple.
at mohasseb.com.
Correct. And mohasseb.com, mohasseb.com is my main site. And then there are other opportunities in terms of the stuff that I do. I spend about a third of my life teaching. I'm a professor at USC,
Yep.
University of Southern California here. And a third around making investments in early stage companies and advisory work, and a third in writing and speaking engagements and things of that sort. So I'm very easy to get a hold of.
And your
And
book is on Amazon?
the book is on Amazon. It's been out for a couple of weeks now, so we're
Okay,
pretty
great.
fresh. But I'm happy to report we made it as the best-selling new book
Awesome.
in the category on
Congratulations.
Amazon. So that was wonderful, and it's gotten really great reviews. I am absolutely humbled by some of the reviews. The opening of the book is written by Marty Cooper, who is the inventor of cell phone. I mean, you can't get
Right.
uh,
Much better than that.
much. I'm just humbled, and some of very notorious business folks and investors across the country have said good things about it. It is a little bit different, as I said. I look at the world in a little philosophical way. So it's not a how-to book. It's kind of poetic. That is, you will see me connecting Plato and Rumi to business, which is not
Right.
usually seen. So it's a little different approach than your how-to stuff. So if you're looking for a how-to this is not the book. If you're looking for something to provoke you, to ignite you, to see yourself and grow and evolve, then this would be a helpful book.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to put it in the show notes. I thank you for joining me today. It's been a true
Thanks, Laura.
pleasure. And hopefully we'll be in touch really soon.
Pleasure was mine, and I leave you with one advice to you and your audience. Please don't leave change to chance.
I love that. I saw that in your notes. Don't leave change to chance. Love it. This is Lauren Cohen signing off from Investing Across Borders, where we teach you how to invest, live, work, and play globally. I look forward to our next show, and thanks again, Sid. Have a great day, everybody. Bye
Pleasure.
for now.